Hi guys, welcome to the latest episode of this Unbelievable Life. Today with me, I've got my friend Ben Trockman, a project manager with Change for Balance. Ben is relatively new to Change for Balance, and he was previously with Old National Bank, and I just can't wait to hear what he has to tell us today.
Hey, thanks for the intro, Nikki, and thank you for having me today. You started off this podcast by basically saying that you weren't going to ask any questions and that the floor was mine, and that never happens. I'm just like so enthused to talk today about everything and anything. But what I want to talk about a little bit today, Nikki, as you and I were discussing a little bit prior to starting the show, is following your passion. And it goes back to what you started off the show with, that I've changed careers recently. Now, I'll tell you that anybody that knew about my career and passions with Old National Bank probably would have guessed that I would have been there forever. And I would have thought that too. It was a dream position. I had a great job. I was doing some work that I was really passionate about. Going back as 10 years ago, when I graduated college, actually in 2014. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a degree in PR and advertising. I had a passion for sports and for disability and disability advocacy, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to join a good team and a good culture, and I wanted to do something impactful. And whatever I did, I wanted to do it successfully. But I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I had, 4 or 5 different conversations with some leaders in this area, Nikki, and I told them that I enjoyed speaking in front of people. I told them that I wanted to work closely with creative people. I told these leaders that I had experience doing advocacy work after my injury in 2006. I've done a lot of disability-related advocacy, whether it's for accessible airlines or better employment or all the things that seem wrong in society. And I just stumbled upon the opportunity to having a conversation with the leader of Old National Bank, which was Bob Jones at the time. And a month later, I had a job opportunity. Now, here's a young man who is graduating from college with a significant disability, but one hell of a personality, if I may say so myself. It was just looking for something to do, an organization to accept me and to get me involved and utilize my passions in any way possible. I did that. I did that for 7 years. For 7 years, I was with Old National Bank and had the opportunity to build some programming that helped empower people with disabilities just like me to become more successful, find opportunities, career opportunities. I work with college students that were in the same position that I was and was able to give them a connection with leaders in our corporations or not-for-profits and some of the footprint of where the bank was, which is 5 different states. And you know what? I was passionate about that. I followed my passion of helping people. I followed my passion of advocacy. And I was just given a heck of an opportunity to do so. After the pandemic, and quite frankly, I just recently served as a campaign chairman for a guy running for sheriff. And the election mentality running for office, something that I experienced a few years ago, it's something I'm passionate about, because I realized that as a campaign or being involved in campaigns, it's all the creative process. You go through messaging, and you go through planning, and you go through budgeting, and you work with creatives for photography. You create television ads. I mean, it's all this cool stuff that you get to do on behalf of somebody that you believe in. You know, obviously in 2019, that was me. So I believed in myself. And this time around, it's another guy that's running for sheriff. And so between the pandemic, where I kind of got disconnected from my old national peeps, you know, there's a lot of work from home stuff, between knowing that I felt like I did as much as I could do at the bank, and knowing that I wanted to really do my degree like you, Nikki, is in PR and advertising. And I love working with my creative people, you know, the ones that are dreamers and talkers and collaborators, and just like to do fun stuff, you know. And what I realized in my experience, you know, running a political campaign, is that, as you said earlier and introduced me as, I'm a project manager. I like to do 10 things at one time. It's fulfilling. I like waking up in the middle of the night thinking about what I'm going to do the next day, and being excited and sometimes stressed about it. So I made a hard decision, and I left the organization that I've known for almost 8 years, and the people that I knew, to go to an organization, Change for Balance, that would allow me to be creative. It would allow me to get outside of my banker's box, if you will. And no shade against the bank. It was a great place. But if I can brag for a quick second about my new employer, is we have 4 partners of the company. 2 of them are PR folks, and 2 of them are video production peeps. And the 2 pairs are both best friends from their entire lives. And the 2 gentlemen, John and Roddy, they're in LA. They're video production guys, and they've worked on some pretty significant films. They've worked on the Hollywood space. They're creating content for influencers that are like, you know, people that you and I, Nikki, you look at like on Instagram, like, oh, that's pretty cool. And, you know, there's these, you know, hundreds of thousands of likes on their videos and quotes. The other 2 ladies, Kristen and Judy, have worked PR in, one, Kristen was at Easter Seals for 15 years, which is how I got to know my new boss. And Judy has worked on a number of different campaigns and accounts, one of them being one of the founders or starters, if you will, of the Stand Up to Cancer initiative many years ago. And so what I would say today, or what I'm thinking about in today's conversation with you, this is episode 1 to our listeners and viewers, because getting 20 minutes of Ben is just, I can't even like explain, can't even spell my name in 20 minutes. You're sticking me to 20 minutes. What I would say today is, following my passion was one of the harder things to do. Making the decision to run for city council was one that was incredibly difficult. Making the decision to leave Old National Bank and join a new firm that is small and mighty, to do new things, and to have the vision of hopefully collaborating on films that end up in Hollywood, or not-for-profits that working for not-for-profits that are raising millions of dollars. That was a reason that I followed my passion of creativity. And yeah, it was scary, but you know what? In this life, what we should all know is you only have so much time, and sticking with the status quo, just to stick with the status quo, is just not good enough. And so what I would say is follow your passions and never get comfortable. If you're comfortable, you're not pushing yourself. I have found, look, I'm going into like job coaching mode all of a sudden, or people coaching mode. I have found that I have a short attention span, so being able to stay on a job for almost 8 years is pretty significant, I think. Pat myself on the shoulder for one quick second. I've found that I can serve. I love, multitude of not-for-profits that both you and I know about in this community. What I've found is that my attention span for one place is about 4 years or less. Not because I don't love the place, I don't love the organization. It's because I want to move to the next one and help the next one and find out about new causes. And so when it comes to, if I would have thought about, presenting this whole story a little bit better, I might have started a little differently, Nikki, but we're already 13 minutes in. There's no going back from here. Is that whether it is not-for-profit service, whether it is your career, whether it is your workout routine or your eating routine, don't ever get comfortable. Don't be afraid of change. Follow what's inside of you, the fire inside of you. And for me, that's led to, again, changing jobs, running for city council, working on a campaign for a guy that, fingers crossed, will win as our next sheriff. It's more fun that way, right? Is that you end up at different not-for-profits and service where you get to raise money for great causes and champion great causes. Now, I would say that we look around and it seems as though there's a little bit of, and I'll use the word shame, of changing jobs or change of, your employment, people, job hoppers. It's not all be job hoppers and do it 10 times all at once. But if you're feeling like you need to contribute yourself and your personality, the inner being of who you are, don't be afraid of it, and just don't stay in what's comfortable. So that's what I'm landing on today, Nikki. I'm landing on that we all should be inspired to do things a little bit differently every now and then. We all should push ourselves a little bit more often. You're a great example, buying a farm, having big dreams, trying to expand that farm, build on that farm, and do some things that your family has thought about doing and done for many years, right? You are equally as inspirational as anybody else on this podcast, because we're all out there looking for people that, isn't that why we scroll through social media, is look for other people like, oh, I love those shoes. Or look at that badass house. Or how did they get there? Let's use this opportunity, this discussion, each other person in this community, to inspire us to do more, to be better, and never get too comfortable, because there are great causes, great people, great organizations that are out there waiting for you to contribute. That's what I got for you today, Nikki.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Like you've literally brought me to tears to know someone that I guess is as driven and as passionate about things as I am. And is there any last thing you want to add before we wrap this up?
Don't be afraid to have some fun, and never, honestly, like, we talk about careers and not-for-profit service and all of these serious running for office, these serious things. Something that I often notice, and again, this is my people coaching mode, is that sometimes we get a little too serious about life and about what we're doing. And by that, I mean, don't be afraid to have fun, because if you can't laugh at yourself or laugh at your partner or your friend and have a good time, then what are we even doing all this for anyway? So keep on laughing and keep on moving forward. That's my message for today, Nikki.
Well, I love it. And I thank you so much for giving so much of yourself to our community. You are truly an inspiration, and I'm so blessed to have you on the podcast today, because everything you said I've taken to heart, and it's very similar to my mindset as well. And we're lucky to have you. And thank you so much for sharing your unbelievable life. And I thank our listeners today for taking the time out of their day to listen to today's podcast. If anybody has any questions for me or for Ben, please don't ever hesitate to let us know. And it sounds like this is going to be one of many podcasts that Ben and I will be doing together. So thank you, dearest, for your time today. Thank you all for listening. And thank you for sharing our unbelievable lives.